In this video, I'll take you on a motorhome trip to explore the rivers of southeastern BC. We'll discover where they begin and try to make sense of their winding routes as they crisscross the highways and flow up and down the valleys of this mountain region. Did you know the mighty Columbia actually begins right here in British Columbia? And the way it flows makes no sense at all. When most people think of the Columbia River, they picture Oregon or Washington. You know, the Columbia Gorge, the Grand Coulee Dam, and the mighty river blasting into the Pacific at the Columbia Bar. The Kootenay River also starts in the same area, but it loops up in the opposite direction and finally joins the Columbia at Castlegar before that great river continues south into the United States. Hi, I'm Stan Humphreys. I live in Vancouver, Canada, and I'm lucky enough to own this cool little motorhome and camp in places like these. Right now it's late fall 2025, and I've just reluctantly put my motorhome into storage for the winter. My partner Marion and I use this book to make notes as we travel around in the motorhome. We call it our journey logbook. It helps us to remember where we went, how we liked our campsites, the people we met along the way, the bakeries, coffee shops, wineries, and breweries we enjoyed, and the walks and the hikes we did. Marion has beautiful handwriting, and that makes looking back through this book a real pleasure. As I look back over our logbook this season, I wanted to tell you what we learned during one 2-week trip. We explored the area east of the Okanagan Valley. That's the southeastern corner of British Columbia. I'm a retired airline pilot, and I've flown over this area many times. But now we explore it more slowly, at ground level, and that gives us time to notice things and learn as we go along. We've driven this route a few times. We call it our hot tub tour because we love stopping at the natural hot mineral pools, Fairmont, Radium, and Canyon Hot Springs. The route crosses the Columbia and Kootenay rivers again and again, and it made me wonder why they twist and flow the way they do. Well, here's the answer. Southeastern British Columbia is dominated by 4 big mountain ranges, all running north to south. The Monashee Mountains, the Selkirk Mountains, the Purcell Mountains, and to the east, the Rockies. The valleys between these mountain ranges are the Arrow Lakes Valley, the Kootenay Valley, and the Columbia Valley. Now, every school kid learns that the Continental Divide follows the spine of the Rocky Mountains and all the rivers to the west of it flow to the Pacific. So you'd think there'd be 3 big rivers in those 3 big valleys. But there aren't 3 big rivers. That's because the Columbia River doesn't flow straight through one of these valleys like you'd expect. It starts down here, near the village of Canal Flats. From there it flows north, which to me feels backwards. It winds slowly through the Columbia Valley, past Radium Hot Springs, then way up past Golden, before looping back down through Revelstoke, down the Arrow Lakes Valley, past Castlegar, then finally down into Washington State. The Columbia River starts small, in a marshy area near Canal Flats, then flows into Columbia Lake. Columbia Lake is natural, not a man-made reservoir, and it forms the headwaters of the Columbia River. From there it loops, twists, and doubles back on itself, winding through the Columbia Valley in ways that make no sense, especially when you're driving through the area. That stretch of the river is calm and slow, threading through the valley, forming the Columbia Wetlands, one of the largest intact wetland systems in North America. Past Golden, where the Trans-Canada Highway turns west over the famous Rogers Pass, the Columbia River actually keeps going north. When you're driving west on the Trans-Canada, that just feels wrong. You're heading west into the mountains, but the Columbia is still flowing the other way, up the valley, towards Kinbasket Lake. Kinbasket Lake is a massive reservoir created by the Mica Dam. From there, the Columbia loops west and south, feeding another reservoir called Lake Revelstoke, formed by the Revelstoke Dam. Further downstream, the Arrow Lakes are formed by yet another dam, the Keenly Side Dam near Castlegar. South of Castlegar, the Columbia finally crosses the border into Washington State, where it's held back again by 12 more major dams in the United States, including the famous Grand Coulee Dam. At Astoria, where the Columbia finally meets the Pacific, it does so with real drama. The Columbia Bar is notorious. They call it the graveyard of the Pacific, and for good reason. Along its 2,000-kilometer journey to the sea, the Columbia is joined by several major rivers that add to its power. By the time it reaches the ocean, the Columbia practically fire hoses its way into the Pacific, driven by enormous flow and a steep, confined channel. By contrast, the Fraser River near Vancouver, where I live, meanders gently across its broad delta, carrying less than half the flow of the Columbia as it slows and spreads out before reaching the sea. Altogether, the Columbia River system in both Canada and the United States produces more hydroelectric power than any other river in North America. And it's hard to believe that all this, the canyons, the lakes, the reservoirs, the power stations, begins as nothing more than a small marshy area in southeastern British Columbia. But right in the middle of that big Columbia River loop in southeastern BC lies another whole river system, the Kootenay River. The Kootenay starts high in the Rockies near Kootenay National Park, not far from Radium, and it makes its own strange detour. It flows south, past Canal Flats where the Columbia is born, then past Cranbrook, crosses into Montana and Idaho, and loops back north into British Columbia, filling Kootenay Lake, then passing through Nelson before finally joining the Columbia River at Castlegar. So while the Columbia loops north and then back south through the mountains, the Kootenay's doing its own U-turn right in the middle of it. Two great rivers, both looping through the same corner of British Columbia, crisscrossing the highways and confusing travelers like me. So that's the area Marion and I drove through again on our 2-week hot tub tour last summer. It's a spectacular route through the mountains, a landscape shaped by water. Two mighty rivers, huge reservoirs created by dams, natural lakes, slow-moving meanders, and vast wetlands. We drove counterclockwise from Revelstoke, where the Columbia River flows south. Just north of town is the Revelstoke Dam, which creates Lake Revelstoke. Heading south on Highway 23 to Shelter Bay, we crossed Upper Arrow Lake on a BC ferry. The Upper and Lower Arrow Lakes together form a massive Columbia River reservoir stretching almost to Castlegar. On the far shore, Highway 31 climbs through the Selkirk Mountains, past Trout Lake to the north end of Kootenay Lake, another great reservoir, this one on the Kootenay River. Continuing along Highway 31 and 3A brings you to Nelson on the west arm of Kootenay Lake, whose waters flow southwest to meet the Columbia at Castlegar, the confluence of those two powerful rivers. From there, Highway 3 winds east through Creston, where the Kootenay River turns north again, then past Moyie Lake and Cranbrook to Fort Steele, where remarkably, the same river is flowing south. Highway 95 then crosses the Kootenay near Canal Flats and leads just a little north of town to the source of the Columbia River at Columbia Lake. Following Highway 95 through the broad Columbia Valley, we pass Invermere, Radium Hot Springs, and the beautiful Columbia wetlands before reaching Golden. At Golden, we rejoin Highway 1, the Trans-Canada, heading west through the majestic Rogers Pass and back to Revelstoke. The route invites exploration. The old railway towns like Revelstoke and Nelson are among our favorites. We love camping in BC provincial parks and in Kootenay and Mount Revelstoke National Parks. But for sure, our top hike is up the Meadows in the Sky Parkway to the Eva Lake Trail at the top of Mount Revelstoke. But the towns, campgrounds, and hikes, those are all stories for other videos. Hey, thanks for watching and for exploring the rivers of southeastern BC with us.